Are front-wheel drive cars actually as boring to drive as most people say they are? The short answer is, well, no, they're not that boring. They're actually quite fun to drive, or they can be at least, but there's a few different reasons for that. So first of all, why do people dislike front-wheel drive cars? Well, they don't accelerate as fast. They just simply cannot accelerate as fast as rear-wheel drive cars because of the way weight transfer works, and they just can't get enough grip up front to accelerate as fast as the average rear-wheel or all-wheel drive car. Another reason people dislike front-wheel drive cars is because the front wheels are both turning and providing all of the power for the whole car to move. So they're kind of doing two jobs at once, which makes the car handle a little bit worse. The main negative effect of that is you can get a lot of understeer with front-wheel drive cars, which basically means when you're turning, the front wheels just lose traction and your car just keeps going straight and you probably hit a tree and die. And that's a little unfortunate. And of course, arguably the most important reason why people dislike front-wheel drive cars is because you can't do donuts and burnouts and sick stuff like that and awesome drifts unless it's the winter and you have a handbrake. Now, even though all of those things are technically negative things about front-wheel drive cars, there are also positive side effects to each of those things. Okay, for everything except for the whole like acceleration thing and kind of the donuts and burnouts part. Those are just kind of unfortunate. The first big positive thing about front-wheel drive cars is that you can enjoy them all year round. In a rear-wheel drive car, it's a little bit harder to drive in the winter. It's just more annoying. It's much more difficult. But with a front-wheel drive car, the engine and most of the weight of the car is right over the wheels that are being driven. So the wheels that are actually trying to move the car have more weight on top of them so they can get a little bit more traction. That especially matters if you live somewhere like Michigan, which is where I live. So we get a lot of snow here, at least generally, and so I need a car that I can have fun with all year round, and this does it perfectly. Now, there is one good thing about not being able to slide the rear end out just from a dead stop whenever you want, and that is that you can't do it accidentally either. It's very hard, at least in stock form, to get the rear end to slide out of a front-wheel drive car, which, especially if you're a younger car enthusiast, much like myself, getting used to driving cars a little bit faster and pushing cars a bit more, there's less risk of you just sliding the rear end out and hitting a tree and dying. Of course, you still do have the issue of understeer, but if you're starting from a dead stop, say you're at like a stoplight or something and you just want to floor it, you're not just going to lose traction in the rear and spin out. If you do lose traction, your front wheels will just skip and spin until they gain traction and you're still going in a straight line, or you still at least turned where you want it to go. So especially for inexperienced drivers, they can be a little bit easier to drive and just a bit easier to handle when you don't really know exactly what you're doing. Like I don't, so this car has probably saved me just by the fact that it's front-wheel drive and I haven't crashed it yet. Another issue with more high-powered front-wheel drive cars is called torque steer, and that, if you don't know, is just when you're going full throttle, accelerating as fast as you can, then all the torque going through the front wheels will cause them to try to turn in a certain direction, and then you have to obviously counter that with the steering wheel. And that's kind of an unfortunate issue, but since you don't have to worry about losing traction in the rear when you're accelerating in a straight line, torque steer can actually make things a little bit more interesting when you're driving. Some of you might disagree with me on that, but in my opinion, it just kind of keeps you on your toes a little bit more, kind of like you would have with a higher powered rear wheel drive car, that if you give it too much gas, it'll just spin out. Let me know in the comments if you prefer front wheel or rear wheel or all wheel drive cars. I honestly don't have a problem with front wheel drive cars. I would love to own a rear wheel drive car at some point, probably maybe kind of soon, but for the time being, I'm perfectly happy with my front wheel drive cars because they're still a ton of fun, they're cheaper, and I can drive them all year round, so I don't have to have multiple cars at once. If you want to see more videos about this car specifically, you can click right up here on the screen for a full playlist about that, and I'll see you over there.